welcome back to my channel. Today, together with Alina from MIADANA, we will tackle how to buy gemstones so that you get all the information you need to get the best price-quality ratio, also size-quality-price ratio, and also that you can be sure that your stones are coming from ethical sources. So let's plunge right into it. Nice to have you, and thanks for coming and taking your time.
Yeah, thanks a lot for the invitation, Johanna.
Most
Very
welcome.
happy to be here.
So, let's talk about all the sparkling things. What do we need to know when we are about to buy gemstones, or what are the price-relevant criteria?
Yeah, so concerning gemstones, first of all, I mean, why do we like them? Because of the sparkle, because of the color, because they are just beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd say concerning how to buy gemstones, of course it's important to talk about color, to talk about clarity, to talk about, I would say, the main criteria that are defining gemstones.
Yeah, well then let's go right into it. But
yeah,
I understand also most people know carat weight, and they know, of course, the bigger the stone, the more expensive it would be. Mm-hmm. But that is not true for all the gemstones, because I think we have first to see what gemstones are out there that are more expensive than others. So everybody knows, okay, diamonds, but we are talking colored stones today.
We are talking colored
stones.
So,
but even within the colored stones, I think there is a price. What do we call it? Structure. You know, from more expensive to less expensive.
Exactly. Yeah, and size is not everything.
So, as we know.
Exactly. Yeah, so carat weight is not defining the price exactly, but it's the type of the stone, it's the color and the clarity and the cut of the stone.
Obviously.
Of course. And then if you have the type and the color and the cut and the clarity, then you can see, like, of course, the more a gemstone weighs, the more expensive it gets.
But I know that September is the month of the sapphire, the birthstone of the sapphire. So now, when we talk about sapphires, I mean, all of us, we know the fabulous blue sapphire of Diana's engagement ring. I think it's probably one of the most famous sapphires that there is. But so is a sapphire, which many people don't know, they exist in different colors, not only in blue, but is a sapphire necessarily more expensive than, let's say, a ruby?
Not necessarily, no. And then you're definitely right. The blue sapphire is the most expensive sapphire out of all the colored sapphires, so all the other colors than blue. And then you have the ruby, which is the same family than the sapphire.
A corundium.
A corundium, right, exactly. And then if a blue sapphire or a ruby is more expensive, always depends on the quality, so on the clarity.
Or the color intensity also.
Color intensity, right. But both are extremely rare.
Yeah, so one criteria for the price is the rarity of the stone.
Exactly.
It's like exclusivity has always been expensive, right?
Yeah.
So then I also know that the color intensity, there's the saying, the deeper the blue, for example, of a sapphire, or the deeper the red, peach and blood red rubies, the more expensive, and the brighter the color gets, it's getting less expensive. But that's an advantage when you buy a stone, because you might necessarily don't want a stone that is almost black. Me, for example, I would love to have a cornflower blue sapphire, which is much lighter and cheaper than the dark blue one.
Depends, because with all the different blues, you sometimes have different origins as well.
Ah, that's true, yeah.
And then you have another criteria which is added to the price. So that means when a sapphire comes from, I'd say, Sri Lanka, it is often more expensive than a sapphire from a country where the sapphire is less mined.
That makes sense. Yeah.
So, and cornflower is mainly like the old mines from Kashmir, which is super rare. So then a Kashmir can be quite expensive as well, even if it's a lighter blue.
Yeah, that is very interesting, because we are also going to address ethics when buying the stones, and there is a lot to ethics, and it's a very comprehensive subject. But what you just said is that the old mines, like for example the cornflower blue sapphire, and then you don't get new stones out of there. And this is why I want to say it's also sometimes very interesting to look at second-hand, third-hand, vintage jewelry.
Yeah, recycling.
Sometimes we don't like the designs, but you can always buy a jewel and then have it take the stone out and then have a new piece made that suits your taste and that is maybe a bit more modern.
Yeah,
and then you get the advantage of having a very exceptional exclusive piece, and at the same time you do something good because you are not mining something new, and I think that is quite interesting. I mean, and then you get a very, very special piece, and you can be sure that they are not heated, right? Because heating also is, sometimes stones have intense color, but they are heated, and that's not good as much as I know.
Yeah, exactly, because a heated stone is always a treated stone. So that means that after the stone came out of nature, that somebody treated it right, and that means there is a human influence on the stone.
So it's not nature made.
Exactly. So it is still a natural stone, but it's coming from nature, but then afterwards.
And if one should not only buy it as a present or an emotional piece, or a designer piece, and if it's also considered to be an investment, it's not a good idea to go for a heated stone, because then you don't get a lot of money if you need to sell it, or if you want to sell it at one point, right?
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
And heated stones are, like you said, mainly lower concerning prices than natural non-heated stones.
Yeah. And also when we talk about carat weight, I mean, it says nothing about the size necessarily of a stone. Of course, it correlates very often, size and weight, but it's very important that you have a good cut. Otherwise, you can have a very chunky, deep stone that looks very small from above. Whereas if you have a good symmetry, then a good cut, then you have really, good proportions.
Yeah, like it's larger and
then you have a good sparkle.
Yes,
that's what
you have a good sparkle as well. Yeah, cut is super important as well for the quality of the stone and for the price afterwards. Because like you said, when you have like a chunky stone, then apparently the cutter just added some weight to make the stone more expensive.
Yeah.
But from top, it's like the same size.
Yeah.
From top you don't see downwards.
That's
it's
tricky.
just adding weight, and so it's just adding price. Yes.
That's tricky.
So in order to understand where the value is generated, you have brought us some rough stone. Can you maybe explain what we see here, the three pieces?
So here you see a rough demantoid, and you see the rough demantoid pieces inside their mother stone, and this is like quite a huge piece of rough demantoid, and you can see that you need to cut out these pieces there, and if they are transparent, then you can cut them and polish them, and then they become sparkling demantoids.
It's incredible. How many carat is that one approximately, this oval one that you're holding?
I think it's around 2 carats.
Wow, that is impressive. And then as I see, I mean, you have two and you try to have the similar color, the similar size, and for example for earrings, and that's always a pair is always something that generates value, because it's very difficult to get matching pairs, right?
Yes, exactly. So one of these demantoids would be 2,900 euro, including taxes.
So that is in Germany 19% value added tax.
Right.
So if you deduct the 19%, then you would have the net price. Yeah. So I think, and we are talking, each of these stones is around 2 carats. So that's quite impressive. It's quite a size of stone.
Yeah, right. So quite impressive size for earrings as well, but I think that's perfect because they are incredibly nice.
Yeah, they're really beautiful. And you don't see them so often, the demantoids, right?
Demantoids are quite rare, exactly.
And they are now directly from Madagascar.
Yes, right.
Well, another price-relevant criteria is, as we pointed out earlier, the existence of a certificate from a renowned institute.
Yes, exactly. So, for example, one renowned institute is the ALGT, which is the Antwerp Laboratory for Gemstone Testing. And there you can see the different details of the gemstones inside of the certificate. So starting with the identification. So first of all, of course, the laboratory or the institute should identify your stone. That's the most important fact. And then the laboratory should identify your stone as a natural gemstone, which is written here. As you can see, it's a natural corundum.
That's the family of the sapphire.
Right, exactly. So the variety of the corundum is the pink sapphire. Mm-hmm. And that's written under there. Then we have the description. As you can see, shape and cut. Mm-hmm. The cut is the cushion cut in a mixed cut, and this refers to the shape of the stone. So you can see it's similar to a cushion, to a pillow.
Yeah. And so it's square with round corners.
Exactly, right. Then we have the measurements, the carat weight. So it's quite a nice stone, honestly. So it's 1.41 carat. Then we have the color and the transparency. So this stone is nicely transparent.
Yeah, and then we have a very important detail, I guess. We have here the report number. Mm-hmm. And we find this report number here again on the blister. So then we can, as long as the stone is in this blister, we know that this is the very certificate that goes with the stone. So that, I think, is really, really important. Otherwise, that wouldn't be worth anything.
Exactly.
Unless you would know that this is a perfect match.
Yeah.
Sometimes some stones have some laser inscriptions in the crown, and the number is inscribed by laser, invisible to the naked eye, in the stone. That is very often done for diamonds, but for gemstones probably not so often. Mm-hmm. But the blister helps. But as soon as it's in a jewel, of course, then the blister doesn't exist anymore and is broken.
And then, by the way, we have a super interesting fact as well with this sapphire. It is a no-heat sapphire. So that means that the laboratory couldn't find any indication of heating with the gemstones.
Which is also very price relevant, as we said.
Yes. Mainly if you want to have like an investment stone. This is super important. If ever you don't have any comment here, then you should have a doubt that your laboratory wants to hide something. So always be sure that it is an established and renowned laboratory.
Yeah, very important. Another factor was transparency and color that you mentioned before. And now you have selected 2 aquamarine stones, I understand, in order to explain us what the difference is.
Yes, exactly. So aquamarines are known for their blue color, but in fact a natural aquamarine appears as well in nature in a super nice green-blue color. But on the market, the blue aquamarines are much more famous. So as you can see here on the left-hand side, it's a nice, intense blue aquamarine, and on the right side, a greenish blue aquamarine. And I must say, mainly it's your own taste, your personal taste, which one you like more. But as the blue color is more preferred, the left stone, just to say an example, is around 1,500 euro, and the right stone has almost the same size but a different color, so it's around 500 euro. The left stone with the intense blue color weighs 3.05 carat, and the right stone, the greenish blue one, weighs around 2.85 carat.
So they are both substantial stones.
Yeah, around 3 carats.
And they're both very transparent. So the transparency, as you can see when you move the light, is really comparable.
Yes.
I mean, that's top quality.
Exactly.
So those stones also come from Madagascar, right?
Yes, right.
So nowadays, consumers want to know where the products are coming from. And when it comes to jewelry, for example, engagement rings, those emotional pieces, you definitely want to be sure that the stone that you are wearing on your finger or somewhere in any other jewel is ethically sourced. So what can the consumer, the buyer, do in order to really be sure that the source that he's buying from is ethical?
Well, there are some criteria that you can respect and that you can look for. You really need to get to know the person or the company where you buy from. So for us with MIADANA, as we have partnerships with small-scale mines in Madagascar, because my fiance is from Madagascar.
And he is a miner and is going himself into the mines.
Right, he's digging himself still. But yeah, he has a lot of partners there in Madagascar, and yeah, we have partnerships with them, and in the mines with whom we are working together. For example, there is of course no child labor, so all the people that are working there independently as independent miners are at least 16 years old, so that means that all the children are going to school. And we are even supporting the villages around the mines, and yeah, that's very important to us.
Yeah, I also know, as we have seen, that there is this stage from the rough stone, and then you're taking out of the mother stone, and then it's being polished, and there is a big price gap between this rough stone and the polished stone. So I think very often they're, you know, the local people from the mines, they're getting the money for the rough stone, but the money, the real value is generated in the cutting and in the polishing, right?
Yeah, exactly. So there's so much margin added to the supply chain because there are so many intermediaries, and that is not the case with MIADANA, because me, I'm a gemologist, and Tina, he's the miner, so we are the middlemen ourselves, and that means that we can pay a fair price at the mine directly, and then the stone are cut in Madagascar, so that means the value chain still stays in the country, and then the stone comes to Europe, where it can be set into a beautiful piece of jewelry directly.
So that means you can afford paying the miners more because you exclude the middlemen who normally put all the money in their pockets.
Right, yeah.
And because this is not there, because if I understand, so you have the direct contact to the mines, you then bring it to the local cutters, and then the commercialization and the import here to Germany is also done by you.
Yeah.
So I mean, you cannot have any shorter shortcut
exactly
than this.
Yeah.
And this is how you leave the money where it belongs. So
Yeah.
the hard work of the miners, the knowledge of the cutters, and then the commercialization here, of course, and the marketing.
Yeah.
That is quite impressive. What is also very often a problem for people is they say, okay, there are lab-created stones nowadays, why don't I go into the lab? Because first of all of the miners, but that we sorted out, but on the other hand also because of the environmental effect of the mines. How do you handle that side of the problem?
We are quite aware of the environment, and that's why, for example, well, first of all, it's small-scale mining, so it's no mass production. We are not destroying the environment. So it's just as necessary as it needs to be. But after, for example, there are no more stones coming out of the pit, then the earth is poured back into the pit.
So then you don't see anything, it's in the state as it was before the mining?
Yeah, mainly. And you can even like plant new trees or whatever you want to plant there.
That's very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, but because I think this is what people are really afraid of, that they are causing some damaging effect.
Right.
But I see another problem in the laboratory stone, because they always try to put this in this positive light, but I have a problem, because if we now would all start buying laboratory created stones or lab-made stones, I think first of all the money would go to the Western world. Yeah. It would take away the money from the countries that need it and that have the beautiful, rare natural stones. Yeah. And also, as we have talked, I mean, the rarity, the factor of the rarity, where really the value lies of the stone, it's completely obsolete. It's gone.
Exactly. So yeah, a lab-grown gemstone and a lab-grown diamond is not rare because it's just produced in a laboratory. And to me, honestly, there are so many emotions. Not only due to the fact that the stone is a natural stone, that the earth created this gemstone.
Yeah, over millions and millions of years under very high pressure.
Right. But then there are also the mining communities, which are very important to us at MIADANA. And so that brings so many points together. That for me, these natural colored gemstones are really having like a long journey and a long story.
Yeah, it's
and a very personal story.
Yeah, it's not this. Even if a lab-created stone is not considered to be artificial, but it is kind of, yeah. And what many people don't know is that you need more electricity to create a stone in a plasma reactor. Than that you need, especially in your small-scale mining, because there's hardly any electricity needed. Yeah, that's what you're not aware of. So be careful about all those arguments that are, being put forward in favor of lab-created stones, but they just don't shed a light on the other aspects. And it's not only Madagascar. There are many African countries. On the continent of the African continent, who really national economies who depend on the mining, right?
Yeah.
So
definitely.
I think we need to consider the absolute entire picture.
Yeah,
but I like your slogan, fair sparkles more.
Thank you.
Maybe you bear that in mind. I love that slogan.
Yeah.
Yes, and at MIADANA, I think you sell loose stones. You're focused on that, so you're not selling jewelry, but it's really a focus on loose stones.
Yeah, our customers are mainly small craftsmen, so they are goldsmiths, they have their studio, they are doing all their work by themselves, and they are specialized in bespoke jewelry. And
that's what I love.
Yeah, and I think that is really the best piece of jewelry that you can have with a responsibly sourced gemstone, because that makes it even more special.
Yeah, and I absolutely share this opinion. And if you want to know how to go about, if you want to have and buy fine jewelry, then have a look at my video, How to Buy Fine Jewelry. And obviously, before doing that, you will find out that you will need stones, and if you need a source, here we have Alina and Tina, her husband or future husband. If you have any questions, make sure to comment down below and let us know your thoughts. And if you have questions that you want to ask Alina, I will put her contact details down below as well.
Right.
And maybe we see each other again. And I have already, spotted some very nice stones in your collection. We will have shown it in the B-roll. And should you be interested in any of these specific stones, you know where to get them.
Right.
Thank you for your time and see you next time. Auf Wiedersehen und bis bald.
Bis dann. Tschüss.
Ciao.